Hi, this is Miss Litton, and these are lovely honors biology students. Say hi.
Hi.
And we are in our 7th period review to be prepared for our very first quiz over content. Yay! Chapter 33. I just finished, double checking writing. Let me tell you, it's within your grasp to easily get a 10 out of 10 on this quiz. Now, it will be 5 questions, 2 points each, and 5 times 2 is 10. 4 of those questions are coming straight out of the content that we discussed in class. What supported that content that we discussed in class? Your group shared notes. Okay, so that is what you're going to use to be prepared. If you didn't understand something in your group shared notes, what could be a reference for that?
Textbook.
Your textbook. Excellent. Okay, so go and look at your textbook if you don't quite understand something. Remember how I told you I wanted you to fail faster. Okay, do not fail with me on a quiz. Okay, fail faster by failing privately first. How could you fail privately to see where you don't understand things? Practice. Where can you find practice questions? Where in the book?
At the end of the chapter.
At the end of the chapter. What if before you took that quiz at the end of the chapter, what are some things you could do to just prepare besides being here today? Yes?
Read through the book.
You could read through the whole book. But what if I have practice tonight and I gotta help my mom cook dinner and I've got lots of English and math to do? What's another way instead of reading the whole book?
Read your notes.
Read your notes. What else could you read that's in the textbook though?
The summary.
The summaries.
Oh my God.
Boom. That's 4. I'm keeping track with you.
Thank you.
Right? Because we got 2 in class. Okay. So you could read the summary at the back of the chapter, but you know what I would do before that? Because I have to get my brain engaged. Sometimes words, especially when you're tired, are just like too many words. I'm bored. I don't want to do this, and fight. Okay? One thing to do is just take your chapter, your book, and start by looking at the pictures and all the bold titles and any bold words that are in there, any vocabulary terms. That's a good way to warm up, Don't go straight for the sprinting. Do a little jog, a little warm up, okay? Look at the pictures, look at the bold terms, go through, if there's a diagram, if there's a summary diagram, look at all of that, okay? And then read your summary at the end. One thing I want to say right at the start of this, don't forget, remember your highly suggested homework, which I call additional objectives. Do you have additional objectives for this chapter?
Yes.
Yeah.
Have I told you what I'm going to ask of those additional objectives? Yes, I have. Where are those questions located? Yes.
Your Google site.
Okay, be more specific than my Google site.
Your calendar.
My calendar on my Google site, right? You scroll down to chapter 33. Remember, how do you know what's an additional objectives? The regular objectives are like in regular font, but the additional objectives are in italics. Good. Now, I had a student who said, do I need to know those things that you have at the bottom of the calendar? You do know those things at the bottom of the calendar because we had a presentation over it and discussions about it. It's not like something in addition. You should know. You should be able to read all those and answer any of those objectives. Okay, those are like the summary of what the things we discussed. Okay, but when you get to the italicized ones, that is something you need to do. You need to read that section, answer those questions. Do you remember my strong suggestion for you on how to do that? We talked about it at the very beginning of this, the second day, because we were busy being bears originally. Yes?
Did you say do it on Google Docs?
I did say, number 5, do it on a Google Doc. Okay? So you could copy those questions right out of the calendar, right? Because you could save it, paste it into a Google Doc, and I would title it Unit 1 Additional Objectives, paste all those in there. You could go get it, but I would title it Chapter 33, right? Look up those questions. I would answer them in a different color font so they pop a little bit, okay? And then you have them right there to look at. Now, can I say these are my 2 best friends and we're going to work on it together? Sure. But remember, if I divvy it, I don't have ownership. And I probably don't have it solid. So I still need to do the reading myself, but I can look to see, yeah, she answered that right. That's good. Now, I'm not encouraging you to do that. I'm just saying, I know you're going to do that. So you might go, no, I do everything by myself. I never look at this. That's crazy, Miss Lynn. I don't even know what you're talking about. And that's good for you because you'll own it better. If you actually did it yourself, you would own it the best. Okay, but if you decide to share the load like Frodo, then make sure that you are reading it and double checking anything that somebody says. Otherwise, you probably won't own it. Okay? Before you show up today, my strong suggestion is that you already have reviewed chapter 33. Why do I think you should have reviewed chapter 33 before you saw me today?
So you can ask questions.
You could ask questions because you know what you know and what you don't know. And it's hard when you're studying tonight and it's 10:30 and you're like, Miss Lynn, do I need to know? Because I'm going to tell you, I do keep my ringer on a little bit just in case my grown children, you know, because I'm still a mother and I can't escape the fact that I am a mother. And even though they're old, okay, and probably don't need me, I still want to be available. So I leave my phone on, it's next to me, you know I get up early. So if my email goes ding at 10:30, I'll be annoyed. And I'll know who sent it, okay? So be careful on that. Do your studying first, right? Do your studying first, and when you come here, I'm just like solidifying it, and you're like, yeah, I totally know that. I totally know that. I totally know that, okay? And you can get your questions answered. Also, right now, for some of you, I'm going to be digging deep into your brains, to the recesses of your memory, and it would be nice if that stuff was already in the front of your brain right now, and you were already working with it. And we can't do anything about that now, but this is just our first chapter review, and so I'm reminding you of all those things that you could do. Okay? Knowing what I just said, turn to the person next to you and say, maybe one or two things you could do better to prepare for a review with me. Go. Okay, now, do you think I expect you to know the terms that I gave you in class? Yes. Okay, if I took the time to actually use that term in class, it's probably important, and I'm expecting you to know it. And remember how we had the discussion about tape and a stapler and a stapler-like question? Do you remember that? Did I have that in all my classes?
Yeah.
So knowing a term and recognizing a term is like being able to recognize, oh, that's a stapler, whereas that's a tape dispenser. An application level question is when I say, how a tape dispenser and a stapler, how are they similar? How are they different? How could you think of another way to use them? That's more an application level question. I'm telling you, don't miss the ones that are like, that's a stapler, okay? Don't miss the obvious ones. And to me, those additional objectives are obvious because you know I'm going to ask you one thing at least every single quiz off those additional objectives. So you should know the answers to those questions. All right, so the first thing, if I were going to review for this class, I would know the definition. I would know that, oh, it still thinks I'm wanting it to, no. I would know the definition of ecology, because that's what the chapter title is about. Any word that's in a chapter title, consider that to be a valuable and important word, okay? So in this word, I see population growth and regulation. So I would know what a population is, as opposed to a community, as opposed to an ecosystem. And it says population growth. I would think of things, what were related in this chapter where we use the word growth? Just off the top of your head, what are some growth words that we use? Yeah.
Growth curves.
We did growth curves. Remember what those were? What were growth curves? What were the two growth curves? Exponential logistic. Did we have letters associated with them?
Yeah.
What were the letters?
S and J.
S and J. Do you think that's something I think is important? Yes. Anything that has to do with growth. What else do we talk about that had to do with growth? Population growth. Okay, I need more specifics on that. Yeah, no? Yeah?
Environmental resistance.
Environmental resistance. Okay, are they density dependent? Are they density independent? Would be regulation, right? Survivorship curve. So look at the title and make sure you can understand what even the title of a chapter means. That's just a little tip, okay, to understand it well. So we went into this, but we visited it later. Remember we contrasted a habitat with a niche. Remember a habitat is where you live, and a niche is what you do. Do you remember what we said, something specific about a niche? Can you have the same niche as me?
Yes.
No.
No.
Right? Well, we're the same species too, so that's a little bit different. But if we were two different species, remember what we said? There was something called yes, competitive exclusion principle or competitive exclusion hypothesis, which said no two what? Species could occupy the same niche indefinitely, right? Do you remember what we said would happen? Because here's a habitat. Lots of different organisms can live in this habitat. You can't have the exact same niche. What would happen if two different species had the exact same niche? What could happen to one of them?
Death.
Yeah, death. You die. I win, you lose. Okay? The second thing that could happen is we could do what? This is yours, this is yours. What is that called? Resource partitioning. I'm going to take this area. You take the top of the leaf. I'll take the bottom. I'll come out at night. You come out during the day. That's resource partitioning. You remember those words? Okay. So just jumping into those. Now let's take a look at these terms. These should be like easy for us. So we have a single individual. If I click on population, what is it going to tell me? Tell me. All the same species. In this case, like caribou or something. There it goes. Okay, so population is a group of the same species that are occupying that one area. Okay, that's what a population is. What are we in this room? You and I. We are a population of humans. Exactly, population of humans. Perfect. Okay, so now leveling up. Notice it's a bigger circle, so it includes more things, encompasses more things. The community, how is that different from a population? Just tell me.
Multiple different species.
Multiple species, okay? So I'm looking at the plants, the fungi, the caribou. Okay, that's a community. How is an ecosystem different? What does it include that the community does not? Right, but the community only included what kind of things? Biotic. Once I get into the ecosystem, I'm doing abiotic things. What are some examples of abiotic things? Rain, temperature, what else? Soil, pH. Now, I want to connect with your learning. Connect with your learning. Abiotic things, can those be a factor in regulating population size? Yes. Abiotic things are usually a what? Density independent factor. Density, good guys, one or the other. Density independent factor that could regulate them. Okay? Typically. Okay? What if it's not density independent, it would be density what? Dependent. If it's density dependent, it's dependent upon the size of your population. It's going to get pruned back because of your numbers. It is density dependent. What's something more likely to occur as your numbers get larger? You're going to have more what? Competition. Sickness, right? Diseases, those kind of things can spread, right, as the density increases. Might be harder to find a mate, which would be part of a density dependent. Okay, maybe you can't find anybody to be in symbiosis with, right, if your numbers are too large. So those things sometimes can be but biotic things normally on your density dependent. Now biomes, we didn't go into it at all, so don't worry about it. It's not going to be on your quiz. It's just a specific type of ecosystem. But biosphere could be. Biosphere is what?
The whole thing.
What whole thing? Where all life exists is in the biosphere. Biosphere. Okay. All right. Moving on. All right. So then we talked about an equation. We said birth rate, or the total number of births, minus the total number of deaths. If I do it per rate, it's usually per how many? Per 1,000. Okay? So birth rate minus the death rate over the total population size. Okay? If I have 20 births and 10 deaths, what do you think my population size is going to do? 20 births, 10 deaths. It's going to increase. If I have more births than deaths, it's going to increase. If I have more deaths than births, it's going to what? Decrease. Okay? when you talk about maximizing your growth, or R, we talked about that being your biotic potential. And we said it varies per organism, right? Do we have as many babies as a cat? No, you shouldn't, right? We have a different biotic potential. And we talked about 4 things that your biotic potential is based on. Okay? When you first start having sex, how many offspring you have when you have sex, how often each individual reproduces, and the chance of survival until reproduction. Remember those 4? Okay? And then we said, all right, let's take all of that into consideration. And we came up with the 2 curves. Now, I want to make a page here. And let's remember, let's just try to review everything oh look, I'm not in alignment. I did the alignment thing. It's mad at me. Oh, looks like I overshot that one. Okay, so this drawing's gonna be a little tricksy that I do because I'm gonna have to focus on what I'm writing, not the way it looks, okay? So if we were gonna break our 2 growth curves up, what would be their 2 names? What was the first one we did? And what was the other one? Okay, that was so hard I can't even tell you. Okay, so now they look different, right? Okay, the exponential curve, if I look at it, and I look at my logistic curve, how am I going to draw this differently? Good. Okay, so now what do they both have in common? They both have the lag stage, and what else?
Exponential growth stage.
Okay. Now, there's something different in the logistic. What one does it have? What does it have? Carrying capacity. And the carrying capacity, that's called K. It's the carrying capacity. What slowed it down right here? What started slowing it down? Environmental resistance. Good. Okay, what are some things that you could tell me about an exponential organism? Usually. What are they? Small?
Large numbers of offspring.
Don't care for their offspring.
Don't care.
They're colonizers.
They're colonizers. I like it. What else?
They don't live as long.
Okay, shorter lifespan. They're opportunistic. Remember that?
Live fast, die.
Yeah. Eat, drink, because tomorrow we might die. What kind of survivorship curve did they have? They had type 3. You remember that? There were, when we looked at the survivorship curves, right? This was type 1, this is type 2. Oh my gosh, that's type 3.
We tried.
I did try. Okay, and these are all the opposite. These are large, right? Few number of offspring, and they do care for them. They were not colonizers. What did we say about them?
Specialists.
They could be specialists, sure. What else could they be? What was the one? It was opportunistic and equilibrium. Oh my gosh. Okay, and what type of survivorship curve did they have usually? Closer to 1. Okay, so that kind of puts several things together, right? That covers that, that covers that. Okay, next, can I move on? You good? Is there anything about that that you would like me to review? It's perfectly fine. Yes, ma'am.
What growth curve would birds follow?
Usually 2. Birds follow usually 2. Oh, can you guys give me a letter for these? J, S. Good. Yes.
Hey, could you go back to the biotic potential slide? The dependability. Yeah, thank you.
You have all that in your notes though, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else on that? Okay, I know that looks like crapidocious, but do you want me to Instagram that?
Yes.
Where's my phone? Would you even be able to read it?
No.
Okay, yeah, I know. It looks like crap. I know. It's caca. It's caca. Okay. We did that. Okay, let's talk about people. Let's think of some summary statements from what we learned everything about people. Okay? So overall, people, if we take the whole world, it looks like we're in an exponential. Now we took all the peoples of the world and we divided them in, and we're just being general, generally bringing them into 2 different categories. What were the 2 categories we took the people into? Less developed countries and more developed countries. And one way you look at them, which one usually has a more stable economy?
Developed.
More developed countries. Which one has stable age structure diagrams?
Developed.
Yeah, more developed countries. And remember, we saw basically 2 types of age structure diagrams. One that looks like a pyramid and one that looks like a column. Remember those age structure diagrams? Here, age structure diagrams. Remember this? And there were 3 parts to that age structure: pre-reproductive, reproductive, and post-reproductive. What could you say about this age structure diagram? What could you say about that? What is it typical of? Which kind of country? Less developed country. What else could you tell me about it?
There's a lot more.
Lot more pre-reproductive. So what does that mean? Therefore,
They die.
yeah, that population is growing. That is growing. Their numbers, they're like more in an explosion part, really exponential. Now, we also studied, some more current information, and why are they having so many children? Not they all, but really nice country.
Like 2/3.
Okay, high mortality rate, right? That some of their children are dying. What can we do, according to the video that we watched, to help them transition into a stable age structure diagram? Education, medicine, hygiene, get them water. Because at first, they're going to even get bigger, right? Because their babies are going to stay alive and they're used to their babies dying, right? So it's going to get even a larger population. But as they realize offspring are surviving and they're investing in those offspring, not that they weren't investing before, then the numbers should start to curtail and you make that transition. Remember we said like in the United States it took like 83 years to make that transition. Other countries are doing it faster and faster and faster. They will move from that pyramid shape into the more stable age structure diagram. Okay? And we also could make some conclusions. We use some words like, if we're reviewing some of our words, we talked about 0 population growth, where the birth rate is equal to the death rate. And we had a little discussion about resources, right? And we said, even though we're more developed, don't, get too big for your britches here, because what is the problem with most of us in more? Yeah, we contribute more. We're bigger consumers of the Earth's resources, and we produce more waste as in more developed countries. So we have our issues too that we need to work on. Okay, we did this. Remember this example, opportunistic species? We already went over this, right? Okay, and I like how I heard him earlier, we talked about short lifespan for opportunistic, but a longer lifespan for the equilibrium. Okay. We looked at equilibrium pattern K, competitors, not colonizers, larger. Okay, then we said, all right, let's talk about things that regulate population size. And we said it really boils down to 2. Density independent and density dependent. Which one do you think chance is a part of? Density independent. Just so happened that the hurricane touched down here instead of here. The drought happened here instead of here, right? You can't control that. Those are density independent. They just happen. The storm just happened. Okay, so those density independent factors that come along and regulate population size doesn't have anything to do with how big or small your town is. That's where the tornado went. So we looked at some different examples of that. We, here just a quick look, abiotic factors, biotic factors that regulate. We know what these things are, right? Talked about this. Symbiotic, okay, because we're going to revisit that in just a second. Things like tornadoes are density independent, hurricanes, flooding, drought, anything weather related. And it knocks out the same percentage, whether you're a big population or a small population, it'll probably kill the same amount of individuals. Okay, but then we looked at density dependent factors, okay? Okay, and so then we talked about they're probably fighting over some what? Food or, yeah, probably a mate, yeah. So they're trying to, so these tend to be biotic, and things like disease are more likely to spread when you're crowded, wanting a certain site. You can hit some of these here at the end. I'm happy to go through them with you. I just want to get through everything. And then we said, let's talk about these density dependent factors like competition, okay? The one, monkey competing with the other monkey. And we said you could compete within your population. Human to human, we can compete with each other. But we said there's even competition bigger than that, and that would be when more than one species wants the same thing. That's competition. And then when we looked at habitat and niche, we already talked about that, right? And we already talked about this, competitive exclusion principle. No two species can occupy the exact same niche indefinitely. So if I have 5 species of monkey living in trees in the canopy, are they competing for the exact same resources? No. Are they spending all their time fighting each other? No. They're probably exploiting different parts of that niche, right? They've broken up that habitat. And that's called what again? Resource partitioning. Resource partitioning. And we looked at things like these barnacles. They're not fighting all over the rocks. They're saying, I'll take the top, you take the bottom of the rocks. Good job. In those trees. Darwin's finches, when they have all these different species living on one island, they're exploiting different aspects of it. I'll eat the big seeds, you eat the little seeds. You eat the fruit, you eat the worms. Okay? And then we said, well, sometimes we eat each other. And so that's a predator-prey relationship. And we know that they are linked, because when the predator numbers go up, what's going to happen when the predator numbers go up? Prey numbers go down. And then when those prey numbers go down, what else is going to happen? Predator numbers are going to go down. And they cycle back and forth. And they can push one another, and this was another word, coevolution. I'm pushing, okay? If you're the predator, I want to be a worse prey, so I want to run faster, hide better. If you're the predator, you want to hide better too if you want to go and eat them. You want to have sharper teeth, quicker reaction time. You're always trying to beat the other one. You're pushing one another, and that process is called coevolution. So then we looked, well, how can you defend yourself? How can you try to hide better, be less of a prey?
Oh, these are cool.
Yeah, so then we looked at, plants can do it, because plants can't run. That herbivore is coming, okay? They can't go anywhere. So they have thorns, they have toxins, they have spines. Maybe they're in a mutualistic relationship, yes? What was the mutualistic relationship we talked about? Tell me.
We have acacia tree and the ant.
Acacia tree and the ants, right? The ants will live inside those, thorns, hollow thorns, and the acacia tree provides food, and the ants will attack any herbivore. Oh, you're going to add on that, yeah. So those are plant defenses. And then animal defenses. Why would I be brightly colored? That doesn't seem smart at all. Warning. I'm telling you I'm toxic. Remember you learned on my cousin Phil. Don't eat meat. Phil made you sick. Okay? So you're hoping that will be. Now, I want to ask you this. What kind of mimicry would it be if 5 different species of frog, you hear me on this? 5 different species of frog were all a bright red color? Not only is it warning coloration, but it's something else too. Yes? Not Batesian, but Mullerian. Remember how I told you to remember that? Stinger, stinger. The 2 L's, right, is Mullerian mimicry. Like a bee and a wasp. That's Mullerian mimic. Let's all be bright red together because that increases the learning curve. What if I am a tasty frog? I have no poisons. I'm really quite delicious, but I'm still red like those other 5 species. What kind of mimic is that? Batesian mimic. I'm trying to get you to take the bait. I am mimicking the poisonous ones, hoping you'll think I'm poisonous too and you won't bother with me. Questions on those 2 mimicries? What am I doing if I am a tasty fly but I look like a spider? What kind of mimicry is that? Batesian. Okay, I'm trying to get you to take the bait. I'm Pantalones en Fuego. Okay, keep in mind, I might try to hide and at the last minute I'll try to warn you off with colors. Or I might try to blend in to my environment. Or I could be a predator who tries to blend in. Remember the spider? You see the spider, right? Spider's trying to get you. Or I might try to startle you, scare you, be a puffer fish, or extend some false head so you think that I'm greater than I am, or have eyes on the back of my butt. Okay? How did that happen? Tell me how that happened. Yeah, evolution. What's the process called? Natural. That's how you can get eyes on your butt too. All right. That came out really well. Okay.
Learning.
You're learning. So if this is a fly trying to look like a spider, what is this? What kind of mimicry? Batesian. Good. Okay. Do you need me? Or are you just stopping by?
I do. Just for a
Fast?
second.
Okay.
Maybe like 2 minutes. Is that okay? Is 2 minutes too long?
Can you wait 2 minutes? Because I'm almost done.
I can.
Sweet.
I can.
Okay, so then these were all symbiotic relationships. What do all symbiotic relationships have in common? Not they all benefit. One of the members benefits. Okay. Are A and B the same species? No. It's not between you and me, right? It can be between you and your dog, and hopefully you have a mutualistic relationship between you and your dog, right? Good, I don't care, good, bad, right? What would a tick be that's crawling on your leg and drilling into your leg? Parasitism. Strep throat. Bromeliad.
What?
That epiphyte that grows on top of the tall trees? Commensalism. Okay. What about a cleaning relationship? I'm a monkey, I'm going to eat the ticks off you, you herbivore. Mutualism. Perfect, you got them down. Okay, and we did that. Oh, last thing. Ecological succession, changing over time. Okay, I want life to grow. What kind of succession is it called if I'm starting with bare rock? Primary succession. If a farmer abandons their field, they decide I don't want to be a farmer anymore, I'm going to be an investment banker, and they let their field go back, what kind of succession is that?
Secondary.
And how are you going to remember that? Secondary succession has soil. Good job. Which one's going to go faster? Secondary, because you already have soil, and soil takes a long time to make. We talked about disturbance. Is it best for an ecosystem to have no disturbance? No. What do you want?
Balance.
Remember Goldilocks analogy, right? You want it to be just right. Yes, and we talked about the just rightedness, right? I want to have a moderate amount of frequency and a moderate amount of intensity. I'm not as healthy if I'm on either extreme, right? I don't want to have too much or too little in the frequency of my disturbances. But it's not that I don't want to have any at all. I need to have some because it kind of helps clean house. Okay, and then we said that chance has a great deal to do with what species come back. When you're looking at secondary succession, maybe during that time when the soil's there were some animals that went through the area and brought some seeds there, so they happened to bring those seeds there. It had to do with chance, who planted in that soil first. And my friends, that is it. Do you have a copy of all the practice questions? Yes, in your notes. Where could you have more practice questions? At the back of the chapter. Good. And what are you going to be for sure going to do?
Highly suggested questions.
Which is the additional objectives that are in? Italics just for chapter number? 33. Yay, I love you, make good choices.